you go.
Yeah, that's fine.
Probably just a blip. Right, we seem to be live. Good. All right. Well, let me also just find us on the my Facebook page just to see what that looks like. So bear with me just a second. See if we are live. And there we are. Yes, we are.
How wonderful. Good. Excellent.
So hopefully we're being watched by millions right now. Millions. But with me are Gill Hart from Lindum Books and the great writer Vaseem Khan. And Lindum Books is a bookshop I visited for the first time this year in Lincoln.
You did, William.
And what a lovely place. I mean, what a fabulous bookshop you've got there. Well, tell us about when you started and why you started.
Well, we've been open now for coming up to 6 years about now. The shop was opened and belongs to my friend and the proprietor, Sasha Drennan, and she came from a different background. And oh, there we are. There's a picture of us. Yeah, and we belong to a book group together. And she decided she wanted to have a bookshop 6 years ago, and I tried to do the sensible thing and persuade her not to. For all the reasons we know, and she did it. And 6 years on, we're here, and until the last few weeks, all going well. So yes, that's where we came from, and we're up in the Bailgate, which is the historical cultural quarter of Lincoln, just around the corner from the castle and the cathedral, and it's just a lovely place to be.
It's a really beautiful street. In fact, I'm going to go and try and upload a photograph of Bailgate because it really is a fabulous place.
Yeah, it is.
You're in one of the best places for a bookshop.
We are. We are.
It looks so beautiful.
It's a very old building. It's we've got a 17th century range in the basement. It's got all sorts of weird and wonderful old things down there. It's a listed front. It's on a steep cobbled hill. We're next to an ice cream parlor. It's all very, very Hogwarts. It's all very.
When I came to see you, I came to the station, which is right down the bottom of that hill.
It is.
And the hotel I was staying at was right at the top of the hill, and it's called Steep Hill. And I think there's a reason why it's called Steep Hill.
It is. It's the one in Sons and Lovers in D.H. Lawrence. Lovers. He's in Lincoln, and he makes his mother come to Lincoln, and he makes a walk up that hill, and she gets stuck on.
Oh, brilliant. Now, obviously, you know, everybody's, you've gone and frozen, I think. But
there we are, yeah.
Everybody's really interested to know about what it feels like to be in retail at the moment, because I was in Brighton yesterday.
Yes.
And the centre of the town was dead, which it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But it's a bit terrifying, obviously.
Well, until Friday, we're in an area with a lot of restaurants. You can see on the picture you've got up there, William, the White Hart Hotel, which is directly opposite us and our very good neighbours. They obviously closed as of yesterday for the restaurant side and everything like that.
Yeah.
But up until that point, it's been like the week before Christmas.
Really? So people have been buying books because they know they're going to
buying books. It's.
Oh, we've just lost that. Wait for Gill to come back there. That's not a bad thing for us, though, really, is it? I know we shouldn't be looking for the you know, trying to profit out of this situation, but it's quite reassuring that people seem to be going back to books at the moment, isn't it, Baz?
It is. I mean, I was in Durham at a bookshop there just before, just about a week or so ago, and they were absolutely swamped with people.
Really?
And you know, you have to look for a silver lining because there are lots of people trying to profit. So we went to our local butcher's, and he tripled the prices on most products. And I said to him, I tried to explain to him that this is profiteering, and you know, if you were doing this during World War II, you'd probably be shot. Not that it didn't cut any ice with him at all, but yeah.
No, and it is quite weird, that, isn't it? I mean, but you know, it's what's going on at the moment in the high street. I was speaking to Graham Bartlett. Do you ever met him? He's a sort of police advisor who's also writes books and stuff like that.
I've met him before. Yeah,
his ebook sales have gone through the roof, which isn't so good for local bookshops, but it is quite interesting that all that's sort of going on at the moment.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame Gill's gone off, because I do think that it's incumbent on us as authors to to encourage people to order from independent bookshops.
Yeah.
You know,
what we found, I say, we found that it was very busy in some ways, and people were obviously worried. People were coming and not buying; they were buying stacks of books. You know, they're building up their empire ready to read, while, you know, for the duration, so to speak. But it will be a little bit different. I mean, what we are doing, we're doing getting involved with both Gardners and Bertram's, the wholesalers who do their send your book scheme. So for the same price that they could pay for a book to be delivered from Amazon, it can be delivered to their door, and they can
come to you and they say, can I have a copy of Vaseem Khan's latest Chopra book? And you actually just get it straight
to
from
our
Garden.
house, and they can pay.
Oh, I think your connection's gone again. It's going to be an interesting one. It's
I
kind
think
of frozen in probably not your favourite
It's
expression.
taken over the phone through the till for the bookshop, so it's keeping us all flowing. We're also, being a small area, we are a big village as well as a cathedral city, and Sasha is also running around with parcels of books at the end of the day, and we're dropping things off to people. We can do that too.
That's amazing, because it is really, I mean, I've just started volunteering for the library, dropping off books, and you realise that when people are isolated anyway, books are a brilliant way to feel connected. I mean, it is, you know, it does happen. Sadly, the library's all closed now, so they're going to have to come, you know, to bookshops a lot.
I think what should happen is that all of the supermarkets should buy loads of books from the independent booksellers and stock all those shelves that are now empty of food with books. Because people are so stupid at the moment, they'd probably buy those and try and eat them, but at least they'd be buying them.
Okay, I'm going to tell the story. At the moment, I have my Australian niece staying with me. I'm looking at her now, and she sat here looking at what's behind me in my home. And said, now I wonder if the paperbacks have got softer paper than the hardback.
Yeah. Tell you what, it would not surprise me.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me.
You have to smile a little bit, don't you, at these things, or we wouldn't all get through it.
Yeah. But I'm glad to, you know, I am glad to see that I've heard a few independent bookshops who seem to be actually, you know, finding they're working a bit harder than they'd expect, and that people are coming in. People actually really have that emotional.
But we do know that this won't carry on. I mean, at some point, presumably, the government will say we must stop. Stop being open. Not that we have to stop trading, I don't think. So Sasha will then be able to take her work computer home, and presumably we'll be able to still keep the delivery of books going to people's houses and to the shop to pick up and deliver to them. But obviously that's when things will start biting. So this is a little bit of a brief last hurrah, I think, before things do get a little bit harder. But we're very grateful for it, and we're very, very grateful for all our wonderful customers who there was one lady who just rang up and said, oh, I'm going to need some reading, choose me 50 quid's worth of books, and I'll sit outside in my car, run out with them, you know, and that sort of thing's going on. So that's great.
Right, I'm going to try and add your the URL for your bookshop to the stream below. So while I'm doing that, can I ask you, Vas, I mean, you have a full-time job as well as being a writer. How are you coping with that at the moment? And
I mean, it's quite flexible because I do a lot of writing and travel for doing events and things. But I work at university, UCL. I work in a crime institute, and we were ordered about a week ago to work from home. So no coming into the office, no face-to-face teaching anymore. And for the last week, we've been coming to grips with having lots of not just meetings online using conferencing software, but doing the kind of things that we would normally do with students, you know, doing seminars and taught lectures and events. PhD open evening, for instance, we did that using a software called Zoom. And it is a different dynamic. I have spent my whole life working face-to-face in office environments. I like it. I'm gregarious. I like people around me. And it's very, very difficult for someone, particularly from an Asian community, because our community just tends to ignore these things because they think it can't happen to them. So it's been quite hard to get the elder members of our Asian community to understand that, no, you're not immune. You're not protected by some higher power. You will get it and you will die. So that's been a challenge, just trying to get the older generation.
Like that too, actually, but still. Are you managing to get any work done on your books at the moment?
Yes, because I'm finding, because I'm saving 2.5 hours worth of traveling time every day. So that's a bonus, I suppose. That's another silver lining. And I did find the first few days difficult to concentrate because, like everybody else, I'm glued to the news coverage. I'm glued to the WhatsApp that's coming to me from all over the world. I mean, I have to say, people are being incredibly inventive with their memes and their humorous videos about the coronavirus from around the world. So, I mean, a friend of mine sent me a video of people in the Punjab from India, and the Punjabis, many of them are known for liking a little drink, shall we say. And you had lines of people queuing up outside the wine shops and the beer shops, going off with like truckloads of beer and alcohol to get them through the supposed lockdowns that's about to take place.
Now, I also need to really tell you about need to hear about Bad Day at the Vulture Club, which is I think this is the last book you published. You've got some more books just coming out very shortly, I believe, but this is the book that's
yes, this is the 5th book in the Inspector Chopra, the Baby Ganesh Agency series. And for those people who don't know the series at all, I lived in India for a decade. I grew up in the UK. I was born here, but I went to work there in 1997, 23, and I spent a decade there. It was the most wonderful time. India was changing from being a largely rural post-industrial economy to being virtually a global superpower. And these books they're crime novels, but they're also my documenting of a really incredible country that's changing, that has this immense new wealth, globalization, westernization that's changed the countries, especially the cities, but it's also got legacy problems. You know, it's got enormous poverty on a scale that we can't imagine. It's got caste prejudice. It's got religious strife. And so each of these books tries to explore something about modern India and get people to put them on the streets of a city like Mumbai. And Chopra himself is in his late 40s. He retires from the police force. He's a very serious man. He's a very honest policeman in a country where, frankly, as many Indians will tell you, that if you have wealth, if you have power, you can get away with anything, up to and including murder. And there's famous movie stars, for instance, who have managed to get away with manslaughter, and nothing's really happened to them. So for me, he's that serious character. But we also have this other development where he inherits a 1-year-old baby elephant, and the elephant it doesn't talk, it doesn't solve things, it doesn't fly. It's a metaphor, it's a symbol for India, and it allows me to add a bit of humor in between the rest of it. And yes, as you say, Bad Day at the Vulture Club is the 5th in the series, and it's about the murder of an individual, a very wealthy man from the Parsi community. I met the Parsis when I was out in India. I met a person who was a Parsi. I had no clue what they were, and it turns out that they are very influential, very wealthy, a very small minority, mainly in Mumbai. They came from Persia originally, Iran, and they're different because they don't bury their dead like Muslims. They don't cremate their dead like Hindus. They leave their dead out in a place called, it's a wooded area in the middle of Mumbai, and there's these stone structures called Towers of Silence, and they leave them there for vultures to eat. Hence the title Bad Day at the Vulture Club. Although that's also a riff on the old Spencer Tracy movie, because I love black and white movies. So that's in essence what Chopra is doing in this book. He's trying to solve the murder of this man, and that gets us to have a look at this incredibly obscure community.
But I mean, it seems the series is kind of partly a love letter of your own to kind of Indian culture and that part of that, but also a way of which you can investigate it yourself. It sounds like you didn't know that much about the Parsi community. This book is a way of kind of discovering that, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to India, so I grew up in the UK, and I knew probably just a little bit more than the average white English person. Because my upbringing was Western. All I had was a few memories passed down to me by my father, who was originally born in India, but then he was pushed across the border at the age of 7, I think, when partition happened into Pakistan, and that's where my mother was born. So, they knew a bit more about that country, but they didn't know much more about this modern India. So for me, it was incredibly eye-opening to walk out from what was then called Bombay International Airport and to see lepers around the airport gate. I mean, I thought leprosy was something we did away with ages ago. I had no clue that lepers still existed, or eunuchs, big men wearing saris, which is a traditional Indian female dress. And they would be at traffic lights and they'd bang on your car and ask for money. And I had no idea that this sort of thing was out there. So it was a huge learning experience. And in the West, we're sometimes guilty of mythologizing India and turning it into a country where, you know, it's all swami, snake charmers, people get up and dance in choreographed numbers in the streets. Shocks people to learn that that's not true. So I thought it would be nice to present India as it really is, with obviously a dose of mysticism, because the police don't really use baby elephants. So
no, there can be constantly have practical problems about how you keep an elephant in the scene. But I think that especially is that there seems to be this element of the real world which we try and incorporate in fantastical stories about terrible things that happen. And half the fun is actually finding out about that real world stuff, which you obviously have done in this series, you know, from day one. You know,
it's true, but I mean, to be honest, I mean, I talk about things that go on in India because I want to showcase people that, but you do that quite well with your own novels, don't you? So, I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about, for people who don't know, what you write?
Yeah, I write books set in. I mean, I did write a historical series, but now I'm writing books set in Kent, and I just think that they're set in Dungeness, which is a wonderful, weird bit of landscape, kind of really pointing down into the channel, and it's a very precarious bit of land. But it's also, I think Kent's a really fascinating place because it kind of is a sort of bellwether for what the rest of England thinks in some ways, especially England. You know, it's one of the places where I think a lot of the sort of Brexit sensibility was kind of experimented with and things like that. And I think in some ways Kent feels very hard done by as a place. So I just, you know, for me, I come from the next door county in Sussex. So it's a way in which, you know, like you, I'm sort of looking over a place that I'm not entirely familiar with and finding out about it. And I think that's part of the fun of writing.
What about you, Gill? What's the sort of stuff that you read?
I mean, there's a huge appetite for reading crime stories, but things that are set in a real landscape and a sense of place at the moment. I can think of so many different series. Ellie Griffiths, Anne Cleeves, your own William, that people are desperate and they desperately want to get absorbed into these worlds. I'm thinking about one chap particularly we had in that bought a copy of your Salt Path he bought, or Birdwatcher?
Yeah, Salt Path sadly sold a lot more books than mine.
Yeah, but he bought the prequel. That was it. It was when we had Deadland. We were doing Deadland with you, and you know, came dashing in, having finished Salt Path and wanting. He had got about 10 pages to go, and desperate to get onto Deadland, getting onto the next one, and that appetite for people to get absorbed in a world that is recognisable. And to get attached to characters that are recognisable, it's huge at the moment. And maybe that's something to do with how uncertain the world was and felt even before this. You know, somebody the other day said, "Oh, don't you miss Brexit?" And you think, well, you know, we've moved on to bigger and better disasters, haven't we? You know.
I think in a weird way, it's really successful because of the way we mix fiction and non-fiction at the moment. I think it's a really extraordinary form at the moment. And I think, you know, back in the golden age, it was more fictional, the world that people put their characters in. Now, as with Vaseem's books, there's real dilemmas from a real world crashing into our stories. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's
so how soon are you guys going to be writing about this?
That's a bit of a quandary. I don't know.
I'm predicting a whole range of novels about virus, pandemics, etc. I mean, I watched a movie called Contagion the other day. Yeah, and you know, it's everybody should watch it because it literally is what is happening right now, right from, you know, a bat being the cause of the original, you know, start point of the virus. And there's a scene in the middle which just made me fall off my chair because you've got Lawrence Fishburne playing this virologist, and he literally lays out, wash your hands, you know, social distancing, etc., etc. So it's life mirroring art, or the other way around. I don't know, but it's just absolutely amazing to see that.
Particularly those of you that write your books in contemporary time. I mean, there must be things written now that were set in England contemporary to all the Brexit business that haven't got that in it because they were actually written before. And again, it must be. You must always be playing catch up when world events are so significant.
I think it's quite scary, really, because it's not like any of us know where this is going. and yet our books are coming out.
You wouldn't have made it up, would you?
No.
You wouldn't.
If we had
I mean,
made
I'm
it up,
lucky. I can ignore Brexit because Brexit didn't really touch India. So.
no, you are lucky. You're very fortunate.
And now I'm cheating with my next book because it's set in 1950 in India. So we have other issues to deal with, partition and independence, and no Brexit.
Tell us about the next one then.
Oh, so it's a new start of a new series. It's again published by Hachette Hodder. It's called Midnight at Malabar House.
Right.
And it's set in 1950, which is just after partition. It's just after independence. It's after the assassination of Gandhi. And what I have is India's first female police detective
This sounds
joining the police force, and she's asked to investigate the murder of a British diplomat in Mumbai, or Bombay as it was then called. And I thought this period would be incredibly interesting. It's actually a decade before the real first female joined the Indian police force as a detective. But this period is more interesting because there were a lot of people don't realize there were maybe 60, 70, 80,000 Westerners still in India. Everybody thinks that they just left at 1947. They didn't. And Bombay was where they were congregating. So it was the jazz era in Bombay, and there was a lot of Western influence still. But India was also trying to find its feet, what kind of democracy it was going to be, because they were snatching all the land back from the old feudal landlords. So, and they were moving towards the left, and Nehru was in power because Gandhi had been killed, shot dead by fellow Hindus. So I'm trying to explore with this book all of that post-partition turmoil that's going in, while Persis Wadia, she's a Parsi, she has to navigate this very misogynistic police force, this very paternalistic society where nobody wants her, because nobody wants a woman on the police force in India in 1950. I mean, even now it's difficult for women in India. So I thought it would be interesting. And what's also interesting, Jill, you'll find this interesting. Her father, her father runs Mumbai's oldest bookshop, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's cranky, and he has a
bookshop in it. That's always going to help you.
Well, I didn't do that to begin purposely, but then later I thought, you know what, this can't be a bad idea, because he's a cranky old sod, and he's had some weird, and it's based on a real bookshop, Mumbai's oldest bookshop, which is so famous that even though it's like a pokey little thing and it's complete mess inside, it used to have celebrities and former Indian Nehru actually went into this bookshop once, in the Indian Prime Minister, because it was so famous. It had a cult following. Let's put it that way.
And when is this going to be published?
Oh, this is out in August.
If all things being equal.
Yeah, if all things stay equal, it's supposed to be out in August of this year in its hardback form, and then paperback next year. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm nervous, as you know, Will, whenever a new idea hits the market, you don't know how it will be received. But like every author, you want a change at some point. You want to write something different, and this is what I want to do right now.
How brilliant!
Well, we're always up for good crime writers with series and backlists to go at in Lincoln. So you'll have to come and visit us.
Well, thank you, Jill.
If people want to get in touch with you online around Lincoln and order stuff, where do they go then, Jill?
Okay, Lindum Books. So we're in the Bailgate in Lincoln. You can look at our Facebook page, which is Lindum Books, or you can give us a call in the shop, which the phone number for the shop, which is not giving anything away, is 01522 262 374. You can order your books over the phone, and we can either have them shipped out to you from the wholesalers. If you're nearby, we can get them to you by Shanks's Pony or drop them off in the car. If you are out and about, we are still open on normal hours, as we have been until we're told otherwise by the government.
Sounds brilliant. Good on you. And
what are you working on, Will?
I'm working on 2 books at once, actually, which is a bit of a new part to me. What I'm doing is I'm writing one in the morning and the other one in the afternoon. So my series set in Dungeness, I'm writing it as untitled one. Got one coming out in May that's called Graves End, and then I'm writing the next one. But I'm also writing a thriller set on a super yacht, which I shouldn't. I'm wondering whether I should say that because I think it's such a great idea. I don't want anybody to.
Is this your super yacht, Will? Is this your?
Yeah, it is.
Part of the coast of
as
Kent?
you know, we writers earn so much money. But it's set on a super yacht, and it's just something very different. It's the similar sort of thing. It's really nice to stretch yourself and go into different ground. And I wanted to write something very locked room, and you can't really get a lot more locked room than a boat at sea, really. And I just love the fact that people are spending. I mean, I'm not sure I love the fact, but it is a fact that people are spending 20, 30, 40 million on boats these days. You know, some of them are spending the income of a small country on a boat. And I wanted to go
or on islands. Apparently,
exactly.
Apparently that's the new thing. But you know, Jill's got an island, obviously, from her
obviously.
Book selling obviously leads to similar profit margins.
Always.
Anyway, I should probably let you get on, and that they've probably had well enough of us now. We're coming up to 25 minutes, half an hour. So listen, thanks so much, Gill. It's been
very welcome.
Thanks a lot, Vaseem. This is the longest I've ever talked to you because I only ever bumped into you with things like Harrogate and things like that. We get 10 minutes conversation, then drift off somewhere else because that
sounds no. What happens usually, Will, is that you have about 8 beers and then you fall down flat. So that tends to end the conversation.
How I would really appreciate you not saying that. You know,
the Harrogate experiences, eh?
One thing I wanted to ask also about your podcast. You're doing this wonderful podcast with Abir Mukherjee as well. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, yeah, it's just a year or so ago I had the idea, and then I roped in all of some of my friends from the Asian community who are also writers because, you know, and about 5-6 years ago, there were almost no people from our background, British Asians, who had either got books published, and certainly nothing in genre fiction like crime fiction. So for us, it was a big deal. We were published around about the same time. And then, you know, we all felt the same thing, that the community has been incredibly receptive. The crime fiction community, the readers, the fellow authors like yourself, the bookshops, and they've helped us to establish ourselves. And we thought, you know what we'd do? We'll have a podcast. It's called The Red Hot Chili Writers. You can find it on iTunes, etc., etc. We've got a website. And what we thought we'd do is we use that to have some fun. So we make jokes about our own community, but we bring on lots of writers from different communities. You know, we've had the likes of Anne Cleves and Ruth Ware and, you know, people that we know coming in, and we're going to have you on soon. And we talk about books, but we also talk about wider things like, you know, what would you do if you were asked to make a Bollywood movie? What kind of Hollywood movie would you convert into it? Have you ever been to an Asian wedding? And do you know Asian wedding etiquette, which is to basically be ready for about 10 days worth of eating and dancing? So that kind of stuff. So we have some fun, and then we discuss topics like Dickens and we put Shakespeare on trial, and we put Rudyard Kipling on trial, and so we have.
Yeah, fantastic. And people just say it because it's Red Hot Chili Writers.
If you just type in redhotchiliwriters.com.
Yeah.
If you type in Red Hot Chili Peppers, you'll get something completely different, which is the old band.
Okay. All right. Well, I shall let you get on with your days. And thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you both.
Thank you so much, Will. It's been a real privilege, and cheers us all up to do these wonderful things in these times, doesn't it?
And it also makes me feel like these far-flung experts that the BBC is always is now beaming in on its Skype and stuff. I feel like I should have something more concrete to tell you about how to combat this virus, but I can't. Buy books from Gill. That's it.
Definitely.
Exactly. All right. Over and out from me.
Cheers. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Tuned in. Bye, Pippa.
We're out. Okay, brilliant. Stop stream. No.